Should I switch off this light or is that okay?
Yeah, you can
It
switch
looks like
off.
I've got a halo
You
on
can
my
switch it
head.
off. Yeah, you can do that. Perfect. All right, Kenneth. I think, yeah, everything is looking absolute perfect. You looking good. Awesome.
Right. And Diksha, I don't know if you'll get it, but it's Kenneth, the pronunciation.
Kenneth. Is that fine?
Kenneth. Yes, Kenneth is
All
fine.
right. Thank you so much. Maybe I can say Mr. Wheeler. Will that be okay?
Mr. Wheeler is fine. Absolutely fine.
Okay. Perfect.
I would like to kind of personally congratulate you and the entire team. Just the title Guftagu in itself, I think sounds really exciting, and it's so much more local and to the heart.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think, people like you who actually feel right, आपको लगता है कि यार, you're doing good, let me be part of it. So thank you so much. I'm really, really grateful that you said yes to the podcast and to the mission that we are going forward with. Wonderful, Mr. Wheeler. Let's start with the first. Talk about yourself, your journey, your success. आपको कहीं पे ऐसा लगा हो कि okay, अब तो मेरा कहानी खत्म है, I'm a world where कुछ नहीं हो सकता. तो वहां से आप इतने बड़े लीडर और इतने सक्सेसफुल पर्सन कैसे बने? तो all about your story. Over to you, Mr. Wheeler.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah.
So I think, Diksha, for me, it's been 17 years of professional journey so far. And it has been nothing less than a big adventure, loaded with rich learning experience, having its own twists and turns, having some decent share of success, but most importantly, quite a handful of failures too. Right? So I started my career, to be honest, in 2002, more out of a necessity than it being a very thoughtful and planned career move. It so happened that I recognized that as a family, we were facing some financial crunches. And the idea for me was to get to a job. I was in a different stream altogether, had different aspirations back then, wanted to be in the travel industry. So I come from Uttarakhand, which is the land of Himalayas. So the idea was to set up a resort and do all of that. But things turned around, as it happens to all of us from time to time. And at that point in time, it was important for me to get a job and get me something that can pay me handsomely so I could support the financial situation for myself and the family. So I explored the BPO industry, started my career in 2002 with a company called Spectra Mind, which was one of the first ventures of Mr. Raman Roy, who's titled as the father of the BPO industry. And he got this entire concept of the BPO, and which is now a well-known and recognized industry in India as well as global. This company was later acquired by Asim Premji's Wipro, and that's where I spent the first 5 years of my life. Started off with operations. In the 5th year of my operations is where I got an opportunity to really get into training program, depending on the need of the organization. And that's where I first felt that this is where I really connect and really feel myself. It's so important to do to be in a situation where you feel comfortable with who you are and what you're doing, and it's all making sense to you. And I realized that that's probably my gift of being able to guide people, educate them through learning and development, give them a sense of direction. And that's where it all started. So from there, I moved into left operations, moved into a full-fledged role of learning and development, joined a German firm called Alvato Bertelsmann. And eventually from there, I so happened to move to the startup ecosystem. And that's where I came to my final destination of HR. So I think it's been, like I said, a lot of twists and turns. It was not pretty straightforward that I had aspiration to get into the HR, but you can say in all safety was an inner calling that I ended up being there. And a lot of it I contribute to also being at the right place at the right time. Things worked out, but it's for me as an HR the final destination, and I'm so glad that it came my way, and it gives me the privilege. And why specifically HR? Because when you look at human resources, I think it's an inspiration and sense of accomplishment that I resonate. Every time I'm able to make a meaningful contribution to inspire an employee, to uplift an employee, to improve their skill set, to enhance their competencies, build their capabilities. And I think it just means so much. Just the privilege of an HR to take actions in our day-to-day life that can inspire others to do more, dream more, learn more, and become more. So when you see this happening and you see the fruit of people that you've worked with later on becoming successful in their life, I think you feel so much more accomplished. And this seeds of everything that I resonate with why HR and why I chose this as my success actually happened back in 2003 when I got my first promotion as a team leader. My then manager, I think he said something wonderful to me that has stayed with me and ultimately made me into the person and the way that I think today. So what in the first 2 months of my being promoted to a team manager and handling a set of 15 to 20 employees, I was completely frustrated. I thought I can't do this. It was too overwhelming. And that's what happens. Like, what I've observed through my career is that we promote people on the basis of their technical competencies and their performance at work. But when someone gets promoted and moves to a role where now suddenly they realize that it's not just about their performance, but it's also about the performance of others. And we realize that we are not equipped. We don't have a system that equips new young leaders to understand the dynamics of people, to understand the dynamics of leadership. And that's what I experienced in my first 2 months. I went back to my reporting manager and said that, what, this is a mistake. I think I got selected, but I don't think so. I'm worthy. Let me not do this. I don't want to do this. And he said something very interesting to me that has stayed with me for the rest of my life, even now, and it acts as an inspiration. So what he said that is, you've got into this journey, but what you have to remember now is that nothing is anymore about you. Everything that you do is about others. And that sort of got me thinking. And I said, okay, I'm feeling frustrated because I'm thinking about myself. If I could perform well, why is my team not performing? If I think in a certain way, why are others not able to think it? If I'm able to look at a particular problem and get to a solution, why is my team not able to get it? And this statement that as a leader, it's not really about you, it's about others, I think it just opened my perspective at a very wide level. And since then, and he said that the real challenge for you is not that you become a leader. The real challenge and what you should aspire is to understand how can you create more leaders like yourself? How can you clone more Kenneths like yourself? And he gave me a very interesting analogy, Diksha. What he said is that when you look at police and how they are ranked, you recognize the seniority of the department of a policeman by the stars that they have on their shoulders, So they have these stars. So, if it's a 2-star, it's X. If it's a 3-star, it's X. And he said the real challenge and what is going to be exciting for you in your life moving forward is to say that how many people do you impact, influence, and inspire, which go on to become leaders. So every time you put your effort and investment into an employee and he becomes a leader, put that virtual star on your shoulder and pat yourself on the back and congratulate yourself. And I think that set me up, and that is where the seeds and where I see my final destination as an HR I look at it as a very happy marriage, and I'm pretty excited with the work that I'm doing, just inspiring people, thinking about how do we set up a culture. They say that culture is an organization's personality. So imagine the privilege of being able to shape up the personality of someone from scratch. It is absolutely fabulous. So that's a bit about me.
Wonderful. That's actually too much about you. Actually, we should learn in depth. So आगे के जो question होंगे, Kenneth, आगे के जो questions होंगे, we definitely go in depth, right? I do have a lot of questions going forward, but then
Sure.
next question that thank you so much that you shared a lot about you. And जब आपने बोला कि दूसरों के लिए पहले करना है, तो ये जो भाव है, ये जो emotion है, ये कैसे develop करे? Like you said very correctly, being a leader, you should always think about people and उनको भी leader बनाना है. It's not कि मैं आगे जा रहा हूँ, मुझे उनको साथ में लेके आगे चलना है. Correct. But ये जो भावना है, हम बुक से पढ़ के चीज नहीं सीख सकते. तो ये जो भावना हमारे मन में है, इसे कैसे बड़ा करें और इसको अगर हमें मतलब आप एक एचआर लीडर हो, सपोज करो कि बहुत सारे एचआर लीडर मिलके एक ट्रेनिंग सेशन करें, तो उस ट्रेनिंग सेशन के दौरान अपने एम्प्लॉयज में ये भावना कैसे लाएं? सो इफ यू कैन हेल्प मी एग्जैक्टली like how we should do that, it's going to really help people out there. So over to you, Mr. Wheeler. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great way that you put it. How do you conduct a meeting, get everybody together, and then do a session on it? I think very interesting. So I'll talk on two aspects here, Diksha, which I feel is very, very critical and important. The first one is the mindset. So for anyone who's an HR leader or a leader in any capacity, and you really don't have to be a leader by the title. So I don't have to wait to say that once I will get the title of a team leader, that's when I will manage people or take steps and go beyond my call of duty and do something extra. No, every one of us in their own rightful way are leaders, and we should think like that. So the first important thing that separates and helps to sow this seed and really get people to be thinking about it is the mindset mantra, which I just explained a little while, that it's not about me, it is about others. When you put this perspective and you look at the world from that lens as an HR leader or any leader in any capacity, it just completely allows you to think different, behave different, and act in a more complete way. And perspective is very amazing. So I'll give you a very quick short story around perspective and why the mindset is so important. So once it happens that there are two set of people. One is living in the Himalayas and one is living in plains, let's say in Uttar Pradesh. Both are extremely rich people. Both are sort of fed up with every day to day of life. When they get up, they see the same things. The person who's living in the Himalayas, he gets up, he sees the hills around him. The person who's in the plains just kind of sees every plain and everything there around him. So they reach out to a broker and they say, "यार थक गए हम, मतलब ये same चीज देख देख कर." So the person who's in the Himalayas, he says to the broker, "आप मुझे plains में एक बढ़िया सी लोकेशन में एक फर्स्ट क्लास सा घर दिलाओ जहाँ पे मैं डेली उठूं तो मैं कुछ नया देखूं." सो द वन पर्सन हु इज लिविंग इन द प्लेन्स ऑफ उत्तर प्रदेश, ही सेज, "आप मुझे पहाड़ में एक घर दिलाओ जहाँ मैं दूसरा सिनेरियो देखूं, दूसरी सीनरी देखूं." and and what happens is the broker gets them this beautiful bungalows and everything. Now this guy who's living in the hills moves to his bungalow in the plains, and the plain ones moves there. And the next day when they get up, and everything is as per their liking, मतलब वो जैसा घर चाहिए, जैसे कमरे चाहिए, जैसा व्यू चाहिए, सब उनके पसंद के हिसाब से बनता है. Now when this guy gets up in the hills, who was originally from plains, he says, "यार बहुत अच्छा है, मतलब घर." आपने ब्रोकर को कॉल करता है, बोलता है, "बहुत अच्छा बनाया, सब कुछ मेरे हिसाब से है, बट मुझे पहाड़ के अलावा कुछ और दिख नहीं रहा है." And the guy who's in the plains, he calls up the broker, he says, "बहुत बढ़िया है, everything is something that I like and wished for, but मुझे दूर दूर तक केवल plains ही दिख रहे हैं और कुछ नहीं दिख रहा है." So that is the power of perspective, of what lens do you wear and how do you see the world. तो अगर मुझे ट्रेनिंग करनी है, सबको लाके एक सेशन करना है, सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चीज होगा माइंडसेट. अगर आपका माइंडसेट क्लियर हो जाता है and you understand this principle in depth, that it's about others and not really about me, तब आप ऑपरेट बहुत डिफरेंट तरीके से करते हो, आप सोचते बहुत डिफरेंट तरीके से हो. देन यू स्टार्ट enjoying everybody's success, you celebrate everybody's success. वो जो फीलिंग होती है that my peer is growing, मुझे कुछ करना चाहिए उसको नीचे खींचने के लिए, all of this becomes absolutely secondary. And the beauty of all of it is, when we invest a lot of our times in helping others, in influencing and encouraging others, there is a thing called God, and he's very kind. जब आप अपने प्रॉब्लम्स को छोड़ करके दूसरों की प्रॉब्लम्स हेल्प करने लगते हो ना, तभी भगवान आपकी जिंदगी में आपके प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करने आता है. सो इनवेरिएबली इट्स अ विन विन सिचुएशन. आप दूसरों को हेल्प करोगे तो ही आपको कहीं से हेल्प मिलती है, एंड लाइक माइंडेड पीपल इवेंचुअली फाइंड अदर्स. सो दैट इज वन थिंग. एंड सेकंड, जो ये भावनाओं को सोच से प्रैक्टिकल में कन्वर्ट करने के लिए मदद कर सकता है, is my belief that we should operate out of compassion as leaders, as human beings. We say, हम empathy word बहुत सुनते हैं, but empathy for me is not enough. हमें empathy से transform होके या transition होके compassion में आना चाहिए, because जब आप compassion से operate करते हैं, तब आप empathy में आप दूसरे की problem समझते हैं, अपने आप को उसकी जगह पे रखते हैं और सोचते हैं कि यार अगर मैं भी ऐसी प्रॉब्लम में होता, probably I would have also felt the same. But when you're operating from compassion, that is where you get up and take action. A person who's operating with empathy will only empathize and recognize the problem, may not do something. But somebody who operates from compassion will be compelled to take action. तो मुझे अगर मेरे principles हैं कि मुझे लोगों की मदद करनी है और मुझे कोई परेशानी में दिखता है, and if I have a compassionate mindset, I will by default without thinking go ahead and start helping. So to convert this idea of saying that it's about others, a compassionate mindset बहुत ज़रूरी है. अगर आप वो करते हैं तो आप definitely ये achieve कर पाओगे. And the last thing, Diksha, on this question is something very interesting. So there is this inspirational coach and a leader called John Maxwell, और उनका एक statement है जो मुझे बहुत ज़्यादा पसंद है. He says that everything rises and falls with leadership. Everything. अगर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ग्रो कर रही है, बढ़ रही है, तो वो लीडरशिप से है. अगर नहीं कर रही है, प्रॉब्लम में है, चीजें chaotic है, that then it is also about leadership. सब कुछ एवरेज चल रहा है तो भी लीडरशिप है. So everything rises and falls with leadership. और उस थॉट से हर लीडर को, हर एचआर पर्सन को हमेशा ये दो क्वेश्चंस अपने आप से डेली पूछने चाहिए. आप डेली उठो, आप डेली दो क्वेश्चन पूछो अपने आप से. पहला क्वेश्चन, व्हाट एम आई डूइंग टू डेवलप माई सेल्फ? क्योंकि मुझे, अगर मैं अपने आप को डेवलप नहीं कर सकता तो मैं दूसरों को नहीं सिखा सकता. जो मुझे नहीं आता वो मैं दूसरों को कैसे सिखाऊंगा? So if I really don't know how to operate keeping others first, I will never be able to teach it. तो पहला क्वेश्चन ये है कि what am I doing to develop myself? And second question जो ज़्यादा important है, हमको हर दिन सोचना चाहिए as a leader. So I was saying you have to ask two questions. The first is what am I doing daily to develop myself?
Yes.
And the second question is what am I doing to develop others? तो मैं अपने आप को क्या इन्वेस्टमेंट डाल रहा हूँ डे टू डे बेसिस जो मुझे बेटर बनाएगा. क्योंकि व्हेन आई लर्न इज आई कैन ओनली टीच अदर्स व्हाट आई लर्न और व्हाट आई नो. जो मुझे मालूम ही नहीं है वो मैं किसी को सिखाऊंगा कैसे. और दूसरा क्वेश्चन मुझे हर दिन ये पूछना है कि मैं आज के दिन क्या कर रहा हूँ. सो एज अ लीडर आई विल थिंक व्हाट एम आई डूइंग टुडे दैट इज हेल्पिंग डेवलप अदर्स. मैं लोगों के लिए सेशंस कर रहा हूँ, मैं अपने टीम मेंबर को कोचिंग दे रहा हूँ, मैं किसी को रीच आउट करके उससे पूछ रहा हूँ कि आप क्या प्रोजेक्ट पे काम कर रहे हो, व्हाट आर द चैलेंजेस यू आर फेसिंग, एंड देन आई एम गिविंग इनपुट्स टू दैट पर्सन. सो आई थिंक दीज थ्री पिलर्स, अगर हम एक पिलर की तरह मान के चलें स्ट्रक्चर्ड फॉर्मेट में, is what can help us to convert from just thinking about it, having a bhavna, to be able to put it into execution and reach out to people.
True. Wow, I think हर सुबह उठ के हमें ये 3 प्रश्न पूछने ही चाहिए. 2 नहीं पर तीसरा भी पूछो, भाई ये सब ठीक है, अभी करेगा क्या? So you should ask last question कि what is your to do list? करना क्या है, करना कैसे है? अब आगे चलते हैं मिस्टर व्हीलर. अब मुझे ये बताइए, जैसे अभी आपने बताया कि ये भावना, ये माइंडसेट का काम है. अब माइंडसेट मैं बुक्स पढ़ के सीख सकती हूँ, मे बी नहीं भी सीख सकती हूँ, राइट? इट डिपेंड्स ऑन पर्सन टू पर्सन. बट एक वर्किंग प्रोफेशनल के लिए आई एम श्योर एक अच्छा इंसान है तो वो पर्सनल लाइफ में भी बहुत अच्छा करेगा और प्रोफेशनल में भी उतना ही अच्छा करेगा, बिकॉज ऑल अबाउट योर एथिक्स एंड इंटीग्रिटी. बट देन इफ आई वांट टू लर्न मोर, से फॉर एग्जांपल कि मैं एक यंग ग्रेजुएट हूँ, राइट? अब मुझे अपने पहला जॉब लैंड करना है. आई वांट टू लैंड अ न्यू जॉब और न्यू इंटरव्यू. वहां पे मुझे एचआर बनना ही बनना है. अब समाज के दायरे में सोचते हैं कि समाज मुझे बोलता है ये एचआर क्या है? यू कैन बिकम एन इंजीनियर, यू कैन बिकम अ डॉक्टर, यू कैन बिकम अ लॉयर. ये एचआर क्या है? व्हाई ह्यूमन रिसोर्स, राइट? सो जो जितने भी हमारे यंग जनरेशन है, पीपल थिंक अबाउट लाइक एचआर माइट दे रिडिक्यूल एचआर, लाइक तुम्हारे पास काम क्या है? And this mentality we need to check out. Hence the reason we are doing this, the facts talk and the podcast and the guftagoo. So your point, sir, like how we should remove the stigma and the stereotype from the culture, from the society. As in, like parents बोलेंगे HR, मेरा बेटा HR executive है. Obviously, he'll start executive, he'll go to a CHRO, but then they feel like क्यों तो HR ही क्यों choose किया, right? So आपके लिए उन सभी लोगों को वो क्या मैसेज होगा सर कि HR अगर आपने as a career option लिया है तो वो कितना सही है, और उसी करियर ऑप्शन में उसी दफा आपको अपने मन में अपने विद इन ह्यूमन, बिकॉज इट्स नॉट मशीन को 0-1 लिखो चलेगा, बट इट्स ह्यूमन. यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड देम अ लिटिल मोर, एक्चुअली टू मच. यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड द साइकोलॉजी, यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड विद कंपैशन, विद ग्रैटिट्यूड, लॉट मेनी थिंग्स, राइट? सो सर आपके लिए सोसाइटी कितना इम्पैक्ट करता है टू नॉट टू बिकम एचआर, और एचआर में क्या लाइफ है, वो स्टिग्मा, वो स्टीरियोटाइप, प्लस एज एन इंडिविजुअल के दिमाग में कि मेरे को कुछ बड़ा करना है, बट एचआर में बिकॉज आई एम वेरी मच inclined towards compassion, towards gratitude, towards my people. So over to you, sir. What's your take on it?
Sure. Good question, Diksha. So my understanding is that we, in today's world, जो हम इंडस्ट्री 4.0 बोलते हैं,
जी.
ये स्टिग्मा काफी हद तक जा रहा है. I really don't see the world of HR and how people think about HR and how society relates to HR is still the same at what it was previous years. It's completely different right now. I think the role of HR has evolved so much. There's so much more meaning. हम हमेशा से ये बोलते आए हैं कि HR को एक support function है, and hence the idea is to only manage resources. Today, it's absolutely not true. Today, the idea is not to manage resources. The idea is to collaborate, get everybody aligned to the organization's mission, its vision, and then make it a fruitful experience for all the stakeholders involved. वो चाहे आपके एम्प्लॉय हैं, चाहे आपका ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, चाहे आपके कस्टमर्स हैं या आपके इन्वेस्टर्स हैं. So to a large extent, my experience of through my journey and how I have seen things around, और मैं काफ़ी seminars में participate करता हूँ, panel speaker करता हूँ, and I hear, why I'm saying this is because I've heard a lot of other industry experts on HR also talk about it. I've been in those platforms जहाँ पे ये बातें होती हैं, and I can, from a first-hand experience and approach, tell you that the world of HR has really transformed, and it has really, really evolved. और खास करके अगर आप मेरे से पूछते हो सोसाइटी पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से कि आज की डेट में तो ज्यादा रेलेवेंट है. सो टुडे वेयर वी आर इन दिस पैंडेमिक सिचुएशन where people suddenly have realized that there's so much of chaos, we really future is a little uncertain, लोगों के दिमाग में एंजाइटी है, there is this fear of जॉब रहेगा भी कि नहीं रहेगा, how will we operate. अगर ये सब में आप honestly देखो, HR has been that instrument which has brought about discipline, which has brought about structure, even in this work from home environment, and made it very easy for the business holders to ensure the business continuity है वो बिल्कुल impact ना करे, जो employee morale है वो impact ना करे, जो psychological safety होती है, जो हम बोलते हैं कि as an employee, any organization that I'm working with, I'll be able to put in my best where I don't have the fear of failure. जहाँ पे मुझे ऐसे नहीं लगे कि मैं अगर कोई मिस्टेक कर दूंगा तो आई विल बी रेप्रिमांडेड. इफ आई challenge the current status quo, people will ask me to leave. So how do you create a psychologically safe environment जहाँ पे employee एक risk free appetite से काम कर रहा है, innovative तरीके से काम कर रहा है, without having the worry that I will lose my job or I will be reprimanded. I think all of this can only be created by HR from the perspective जो आपने भी बोला, उसमें इतना स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड नहीं है कि मुझे रिसोर्सेज मैनेज करने, नहीं. पीपल डायनामिक्स बहुत ज़्यादा डिफरेंट होता है. इट इज़ एक्सट्रीमली डिफिकल्ट टू लीड एंड मैनेज टैलेंट. Human behavior is not simple to explain, and importantly human behavior is not simple to influence. तो एक HR ही वैसा कंपोनेंट है या कॉग है आपके पूरे व्हील में, जो सॉफ्ट स्किल से ज़्यादा ऑपरेट करता है, जो इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस से ज़्यादा ऑपरेट करता है, जो आपको एम्पैथी कंपैशन से ज़्यादा ऑपरेट करता है. एंड हेंस आई थिंक ये स्टिग्मा काफ़ी हद तक लोगों के दिमाग में नहीं है और होना भी नहीं चाहिए. एंड कमिंग टू द पॉइंट ऑफ आप बुक से पढ़ सकते हो, विच इज़ एब्सोल्युटली फाइन. इसमें आई थिंक देयर आर टू थिंग्स जो मेरी वाइफ हमेशा बोलती है, सो शी ऑलवेज यूजेस टू हैशटैग. उनका फेवरेट रहता है. पहला हैशटैग है इन्वेस्ट इन योरसेल्फ और दूसरा हैशटैग है बी योर बेस्ट वर्जन. So always invest in yourself, and whatever you do, you have to be the best version. Be your best version. और इसमें अगर हम ट्रेनिंग पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से देखें तो हमारे पास एक लर्निंग प्रिंसिपल होता है, रेशियो हम बोलते हैं उसको 70 20 एंड 10. सो 70% ऑफ आर लर्निंग्स या हमारे एक्सपीरियंसेस जो हम सीखते हैं वो ऑन द जॉब से आता है. एंड इवन लाइक समवन हु इज स्टार्टिंग फ्रेश, हिज ऑन द जॉब एक्सपीरियंस ड्यूरिंग हिज इंटर्नशिप is going to shape up a lot of what he will ultimately become. 20% of it comes from education. It comes from doing certain courses, looking at certain certifications. हम MOOCs बोलते हैं, massive open online courses. कितने सारे टूल्स हैं आपके, लिंक्डइन लर्निंग है, आपका यूडेमी है, so many of them. Right now in today's world, it's such a great advantage that you have everything. As long as your intent and commitment is there to learn, आप कुछ भी सीख सकते हैं. और जो लास्ट का 10% है, बहुत 10% छोटा अमाउंट है, but बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट है. दिस कम्स फ्रॉम द काइंड ऑफ नेटवर्क दैट यू हैव. सो आज के डेट में दीक्षा इंपॉर्टेंट क्या है एज अ लीडर एंड एज एन एम्प्लॉयर, एनीवन जिसको भी एचआर में करियर देखना है, आपके लिए जरूरी ये नहीं है कि आपको सब आंसर्स आते हो. तो आपसे कोई क्वेश्चन पूछे, आपको ये जरूरी नहीं है कि आप सब आंसर्स उसी समय दे दें. जरूरी ये है कि आप अपने पावर ऑफ नेटवर्क से वो आंसर कितनी जल्दी ला सकते हैं. दैट इज व्हाट इज मोर इम्पॉर्टेंट. सो ये जो आपका रेशियो है, प्रिंसिपल है 70-20-10, अगर आप इसको एज अ फ्रेमवर्क लेकर के अपने एस्पिरेशन अराउंड हाउ टू बिकम एन एचआर, how to operate as an HR, how do you not just only look at books but other expand your horizon to other learnings. I think ये framework अगर आप model करके चलते हैं, so you will really be successful, you will always feel comfortable. और वो 10% network मैं दोबारा बोलूँगा बहुत important है. You don't have to know all the answers. You need to have a connect with the right people in the industry, with your peers who can give you that answer. And the question really is, how fast can you get the answer? So I think that is very important.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I have another question which is exactly related to this department. Say, for example, Diksha HR executive ban gayi and she wanted to become a great successful CHRO, right? But मेरे लिए क्या है, I'm a very shy kid, for example. मैं बहुत shy हूँ and you know I'm a very introvert person. पर human resource में तो बात करना बहुत आवश्यक होता है. You need not really extrovert, but you don't have to go to parties, but then you should always you know, look up to people, go to them, be very comfortable talking to them and understanding the problem. जब तक बात नहीं करेंगे प्रॉब्लम कैसे समझेंगे. बट यहाँ पे एक सेट ऑफ पीपल जहाँ पे मैं चाहती हूँ कि आप अपने यू नो लीडरशिप पॉइंट्स उधर दें या फिर आप उधर सोल्यूशन दें कि एक बंदा CHRO बनना चाहता है, but that person is a shy introvert. उस समय वो क्या करे और अपने आप को कैसे अपलिफ्ट करे और कैसे उस चीज में ढाले कि मुझे बात करना जरूरी है. If I don't talk it, I'm not going to make it. So what's your take on it, Mr. Wheeler? Yeah.
Sure. So how I would want to answer this is, even before getting to the aspiration of becoming a CHRO, I think सबसे जरूरी चीज ये है to be able to identify your why. तो आपको करना क्यों है, आप CHRO बनना क्यों चाहते हो? Why do you really want to be an HR person? Why is it important to you? What is your driving force? Do you feel it's your inner calling? What truly excites you about that role? So I think ये जब तक आप इस सारे questions का answer honestly in a very clear mind frame कन्विंसिंगली अपने आप को आंसर नहीं दे सकते हैं, और वो आंसर ऐसा होना चाहिए जो आपको इंस्पायर करे. वो आंसर ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि मैं ट्राई करता हूँ, लेट मी सी कितना जा सकता हूँ, एंड होगा तो होगा, नहीं होगा तो इट्स ओके, आई कैन गो समवेयर एल्स. आई थिंक वो नहीं होना चाहिए. सो आप my advice to everyone is spend a lot of time in identifying your why. ये लिस्ट एक्चुअली में ऑन पेपर जाके ये क्वेश्चंस लिखो, उनके आंसर्स लिखो, उनको पढ़ना हो तो हफ्ते भर पढ़ो, महीने भर पढ़ो. But once you get an answer that you can be inspired, then I think everything else from there, it's pretty easy. Then it is all about saying that, अच्छा, मुझे एक I have to begin with an end in mind. मुझे मेरा पर्पस समझ में आ गया, मुझे मेरा वाई मिल गया. अब जैसे दीक्षा ने बोला कि मुझे CHRO बनना है, तो मेरा एंड गोल क्लियर हो गया, मुझे CHRO बनना है. देन इट इज अबाउट बैक ट्रैकिंग एंड सेइंग कि मुझे CHRO बनने के लिए क्या क्या जरूरी है. अब इसके लिए मैं क्या करूंगा, मैं जैसे मैंने बोला नेटवर्क होना बहुत जरूरी है, तो मैं एक्सप्लोर करूंगा नेटवर्क में. आई विल ट्राई एंड रोल मॉडल पीपल हु मेड देमसेल्व्स सक्सेसफुल. LinkedIn is such a powerful reach out. So I would reach out to people, seek advice कि कैसे किया आपने, क्या किया. So I think begin with an end really helps us to reach to that final destination. And another important thing would be जो आपने communication की बात करी. So communication is not just about HR को communication आना चाहिए. It's just that to be successful, you have to have some level of communication to be able to be effective in your job. और communication से दीक्षा मैं अपना personal experience आपको बताता हूँ, काफी interesting है. So when I was in 7th standard boarding school में था मैं, और I was always good in athletics, but ये communication, elocution, पोएम रेसिटेशन, ये सब में मैंने कभी सोचा नहीं था कि मुझे ये करना भी है और आई वुड वांट टू डू इट. So when I was in 7th standard, so हमारे आयरिश स्कूल था, मतलब आयरिश ब्रदर्स का स्कूल था. तो हमारे क्लास टीचर थे ब्रदर जेपी मरे. उन्होंने क्लास में आया, हर साल एलोक्यूशन का कॉन्टेस्ट होता था और हमेशा कोई और मेरे क्लास से पार्टिसिपेट करता था एंड मुझे कभी कंसर्न भी नहीं था, सो इट नेवर मैटर्ड टू मी. फॉर सम रीजन ही डिसाइडेड भाई 7th स्टैंडर्ड में कैथ को करना है एंड ही अनाउंस्ड इन फ्रंट ऑफ द क्लास कि आप करोगे. सो अबे आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट प्रीटी ओल्ड टाइम जहाँ पे बोर्डिंग में थे तो डिसिप्लिन होता था, ना बोलोगे तो स्टिक पड़ती थी. तो मैंने हाँ बोल दिया and I started preparing for it. But just 3 days before the event, elocution contest, obviously मेरे को पसीने छूटने लगे. मैंने कहा ये I can't do this. I don't want to do this. So I gathered the courage and I went to my teacher and I said, I said yes, but I don't think so. I want to do this. I can't do this. And it will be great अगर आप मुझे छोड़ दो. Get someone else to do it. Because मुझे पता था कि मेरे क्लास में जो मेरे peers हैं, they have lot of them were much better in communication than me. So I was confused कि मुझे लिया ही क्यों है. And what he said to me, Diksha, completely changed my life. I can say I can contribute lot of my success to him. Yeah. So what he told me is, he said, fair enough, but what I want you to think about is this, and I want you to hear me loud and clear, that in life, forget about this elocution competition, forget about your school journey. In life, even if you have to be an inch of successful, you have to have command over communication.